Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth? Hello, we're back again. It's a Monday. In the UK, is it today that all the COVID restrictions randomly just disappeared because everything's safe now? That's how it works. And Carlo's here.
I'm here. Hello.
That was my intro for today. I don't know why I went for that intro. Well, it is today, right? Where COVID's just disappeared, right? According to the government.
I don't know. According to the Scottish government, I think maybe.
Maybe I can't remember. But anyway, we've been away this weekend, as most of people here will know, because we chatted about it last Monday. Jesus, we were away at Scotland this week in Stirling for Always Winter, and see this bad boy here. We are going to be discussing that in great detail, probably, as we always do when we
Too
get
much
to an
detail,
event.
as always.
Too much detail. Yeah, so I can see Tom in chat. He's hyped for this one. Don't know why, Tom. Mate's does shit. I heard his shit.
Hello to everyone in the chat. All the usual names, plus some less usual names. Good to see everyone.
Definitely. So we'll get onto all of that stuff as well throughout the episode. There's other bits and bobs I want to mention as well, and I guess some sneaky, peeky, kind of like one of those Mickey promises, where I say something and then it probably definitely doesn't happen. Do you remember them, Carlo?
That's all I live for. So
Nice. All right then, we'll dive into it. So, we were in Stirling, and Carlo, I'm gonna leave this one to you.
Are you?
Yeah, mainly because our travelling antics. You've ridden to Stirling on a bike in like the driving rain, and we had a fuel crisis the last time we went down to London. How would you describe this particular journey?
The return?
No, the way there.
Pretty tough to begin with.
Yeah.
For
those of you who we didn't tell at the weekend, and for those of you who obviously aren't in the UK, you wouldn't know. We set off, as you do. Everything was going fine. And then literally it's about like a mile from your house, Carlo. Someone had fallen off a bridge onto the motorway from like the bridges over motorways. Massive car like crash basically, and we just set off as you do to an event, and there was this massive delay. Absolute nightmare. And literally outside Carlo's Road, all backed up, which was god awful, to put it bluntly. But it did mean we were a bit off to a rocky start, right?
The first mile was significantly the slowest mile.
It worked out that Dan, where Dan lives, he came pick me up, and then we went to pick Carlo up. And by the time Dan had got back to where he lives, it'd taken him like an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours round trip, which usually takes like at most an hour at most. Big grim. Anyway, everything else was fine until we got to Stirling. We met up with Chris and Dean, right? And then we randomly found out that the rule of three still existed last weekend. We couldn't go for a drink.
Not something we have to contend with in the UK. Oh, well, sorry. England. Sorry.
Yeah, we couldn't go for a drink.
I shouldn't say UK.
I don't know how.
Nobody would let 5 people in somewhere. So it was an early Friday night.
Yeah. Not like Carlo cares. He doesn't drink anyway. So, the event itself. Now, the event itself, Saturday morning, was it 44 people on the day?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And a massive shout out, by the way, to all attendees at the event. There were 44 people on the Saturday, and as far as I'm aware, all 44 returned for Sunday.
Yep.
So, for those that did attend, and for those that were at the GT in London, this event was basically the same size, as the London GT, or very equivalent, which is absolutely fantastic. I think that London will always have the prestige of being in London. I think it will attract more people from the south of England, which helps. But really, this is like the second event, if not, the biggest event on the UK calendar outside of the London GT.
Yeah,
So
I think it attracted a more local Scottish scene.
mhm.
A lot of people. So LGT, I think 3 people travelled down from Scotland.
Mhm. Did you randomly cut
And
off then?
yeah, I think I did. I think I did.
Cool. Keep going.
Hopefully, this isn't the start of a terrible connection episode, which everybody loves. So at the LGT, 3 of the Common Ground games, real regulars, they made it down to the LGT, but not what seems to be actually quite a good, healthy Scottish community by the looks of the success of the Scottish GT. There must have been, I think maybe I would probably put it at like 24 of the 44 would have been Scottish players, and about 20 had travelled up from mostly North England. But like big shout out to Dean and Teddy, who came all the way from right down south. 7.5 hour drive for them, which of course is the same that the Scottish guys would have to make down to the LGT last year and hopefully next year. But hopefully they will get out and come further, and I really hope that we'll see even more Scots down at the LGT next year, because they have a strong and thriving scene. And it was good to see, the regular faces from more of the England tournaments that I've seen before. There is starting to be a real regular scene, I would say, around particularly the mid to north of England, where I see a lot of the same players. Great to see them every few months, and getting to play them on the regular these days.
Yeah, yeah. More on that later when we obviously talk about opponents and things like that and the event itself. Yeah, it was fantastic. Fantastic start to the day, and it led off with actually a disappointing, and this is by no means a stretch, but a disappointing prize given out first of all to some people who had what the Scottish John Craig and the Scottish guys there deemed as was it dirty lists.
Mm-hmm.
Carlo, I believe you received one of these badges. I don't know if you wanted to talk us through what that feeling was like.
Yeah, it was. I did get a reek badge. I did reek for my dirty lists. They were given to every MOD player. They were also given to Tom Bell's Double Offal, High Low, and I think there was one more player whose was his Greyjoy lists considered dirty.
I think someone ran like a ridiculous Reaver spam list or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, I didn't mind getting the badge. Like, I honestly, like, I mean, it's in good jest, and even if it wasn't in good jest, I would have been like, yeah, I don't care, because personally, if it's a competitive event, I'd almost be. I mean, like, I know you didn't get one, but like, I'd almost be disappointed if I turned up to a tournament and someone didn't say, they're really powerful lists.
Mhm.
I did think it was interesting though, because it's a very interesting discussion in general, because my lists were basically unique, right? It's not, hey, look, you've brought the same list as everybody else. You brought the same list that like every online's been running. Like, nobody, as far as I'm aware, I've never seen a single person ever run either of my lists. And I don't just mean like, oh, I've changed like one attachment here or there. Like, actually, in like their pure concept, almost nobody has almost ever run in a tournament an 8 activation MOD before. Definitely nobody's saying that 2 NCUs are generally considered dirty lists. And the Drogo list as well is very unique. I don't think I've seen anybody play it before myself. So it's an interesting concept of like what is. I always try and build powerful lists, but I also always try and build unique lists. I don't really copy anything that anybody else does. Personally, I have I'd be really interested to play any person who has a powerful but unique list. But like I say, I'm more than happy to get called dirty. Like honestly, it happens every single game that I ever play. Like when yeah, they're the rules. They're the rules. I'm here to push them to the limit.
And that's fair enough. I actually thought it was a great idea. It like in principle, and like it does spark those kind of discussions and that thought.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's not obviously meant. Not no one took it in bad faith at all, which is
No,
fantastic. But again, I think that says a lot about the community as well. In that, I
yeah,
think I having dealt with other communities in the past with other things, that's the kind of thing which some people get really torn up by. In my
mm.
opinion, unnecessarily. In the end of the day, you just take it and you own it. And those players did. Again, more on that later.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, like I'm pretty sure everybody wore their badges, even like that
yeah,
night to the curry.
yeah, yeah,
Like no, I don't think nobody was trying to hide their badge.
No, it
Nobody,
was a It became a badge
no.
of honor, I think. um, so,
Oh, Ari, I guess I'll tell you how the fortune seeker did later.
um, all right. So, um, for me though, the next part of the day, which it wasn't actually until later when I found out, they awarded the Archmeister's Prize straight away, which 3 people had entered. Which, in case people weren't aware, you could enter a basically story about your lists, and it was judged by Chase from on the table. And it was a Greyjoy player. Now I can't for the life of me remember his name. It's going to really bug me. But I think it was one of the Greyjoy players won, right?
um,
Think.
yeah, I forget who.
Yeah, that's going to really bug me.
Um, I'll tell you that I was disappointed that they didn't read out their stories.
Yes.
I
Yes.
would have loved them to have to give their stories on the day, or at least the winner. But yeah.
We were talking, weren't we, with Marwyn, resident Marwyn, who we do get to meet finally in the flesh, and well, it turns out Marwyn had gone full out for this, right? He'd done 2 pages of story.
Yep.
He had done research. This man, who already knows so much more about the lore than anyone else in existence, outside of me, maybe J.R.R. Martin, was very disappointed that his lore-accurate description of how Roose and Dario had travelled to Essos and the New World was not somehow picked as something like amazing. So a moment there for Marwyn, who was beaten in a lore contest and a story contest. Was it Stuart who won? There we go. So it's playing Starks. Apologies.
Stuart the ever unlucky, I believe.
Stuart the ever unlucky, yeah. But my heart goes out to Marwyn because he really, really wanted that. It's literally a Marwyn prize all over.
There he is, the chat.
But beaten. Maybe there is someone better at lore than Marwyn. Who knows? Anyway, the games. All right.
They happened.
I think I played Douglas round 1 with his Lannisters. And actually, shout out to Douglas. He ended the tournament really well. He actually ended up as the. We'll check it in a second. He ended up as the best Lannister. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I think he ended up.
That's true.
7th in the competition. Yeah. So missing out on in the 4-2 bracket. Quite near the top of the 4-2 bracket. So well done to Douglas. Honestly, really well done to Douglas. We've got pictures and everything, which we'll go through in a minute. But yeah, that was great. Played who was it? Round 2. I played Scott from NRG, which was great against his Greyjoys. That was great. And I finished the day playing up against Leet Teddy, Chris, which obviously Carlo then had to deal with on Sunday. Big bounce there. So, we also had on the Saturday. Who did you have, Carlo? Who did you have on Saturday? Oh,
I started against a person I'd never met before. His I forget what his real name is actually now. It's Papa Murph. I
yes.
believe is his handle. He was the only other Free Folk player, which actually, you know what, I was crazily nervous going in because I my lists actually I don't believe are very good against Free Folk. Murray, there we go. Um, and I just like I had these really this and I think his lists were really strong. They were really good lists, very similar to what I've faced against Mickey. And you know, in the recent couple of weeks, in the couple of practice games that I've had, I've gone about 50-50 with Mickey. You know, just like game for game. We normally play like the same pairing twice, and like literally it'll go one way each time. So I was thinking, God, I'm actually going to come all this way to this tournament and and tank out in the first round. Um, that was a great game, but he wasn't super experienced. So you know, like, and as me and you spoke about in the lead up, that game mode is really an uphill battle for the free folk if you try to play Endless Horde and I play Field Control. And that is exactly what happened on round two. Combine it with some plus charges, 3+ charges that didn't come off, and he got in a real hole really fast. And then, you know, Targaryens did their thing and cleaned up. After that, I think I played Connor Kerr, Belgoroth. I think that was second game. And then I finished out third game of the day against. I should probably just bring this up. It'd remind me very
Oh, Vicky,
easily.
right?
Uh, against Vicky's Targaryens. Yeah, it was my third game of the day,
Yeah.
which was brutal. Actually, was actually super brutal. She It was quite dicey. It was quite dicey. I threw a lot of dice. She failed a lot of dice. And what I think was probably a relatively comfortable matchup for me became an absolute slaughter fest when the dice really went against her. But all three games were good. I built some confidence over those first three games. None of them were bad matchups for me. They were all pretty solid. And I was pretty pleased about that because, like I say, I really wasn't very experienced with the faction or my own lists. They were changed like, you know, just days before the event. Well, days before the final lock-in, and I'd only really played them once. By that first day, I played Drogo 3, and I felt much more confident with the list by the end of it. I was feeling good about it going into day 2.
I do really feel for Vicky in that matchup. You didn't play the Mother of Dragons, which obviously a lot of people play Mother of Dragons into Baratheons, and it can be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I spoke to Vicky after that game, and she came away and she said, he rolled really well with veterans. And when I say really well, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Carlo did the Jorah start of turn order on a unit of wardens or something, and did the veteran shot, and one of the shots was something like 6 precision hits.
Mm-hmm. 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 Just what's the point in armor? What's the point in armor if I'm just gonna roll some re-rolls and just be like, all right, just take 5 models off, and that's before we even ask you to take a morale check or any armor saves. Yeah, it was pretty rough. It went real. It went really bad, really fast.
Yeah.
So you know, I would actually apologize for the kind of luck that I had in that game.
So yeah, so that was day one. And overall, day one was really enjoyable. You know, I enjoyed all my games. I especially enjoyed playing against Chris as well, who I've played a couple of times on TTS. Never actually got the opportunity to play in real life on the table with him. Um, and yeah, people, Duggars as well, who I played at the GT in London, and I really enjoy playing against Duggars. I think he's a great guy, obviously, and yeah, he's pretty good at the game. And yeah, Scott, isn't it? I'll always play Scott. So end of day one though, and this is a massive actually shout out to the community as a whole. Um, Connor had booked a place at an Italian restaurant, hadn't he? Not Italian. What am I talking about? Indian. And it was ridiculous. It was absolutely stupid that the whole meal that we had cost like £15, and I swear that we'd all eaten far more food than anyone could possibly handle. It was absolutely ridiculous, and there must have been about 30 of the 44 players there at the event. Um, so it was fantastic. It was brilliant to be out with a load of people in the event and sitting, chatting, eating food, just chilling out. I actually think it's one of outside of the GT and obviously the social we did after the Saturday on the GT. Uh, that's probably the best social event in terms of community building and getting to know each other that I think Song
Mhm.
of Ice and Fire has ever really experienced, and it really was. The meal was fantastic. A really good idea from Connor. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I think they did a great job with the choice, great job with the venue, and really, it, it was so difficult for us to find anywhere to go on Friday. Like people were out, people were trying to meet up, people trying to say hello to each other, people trying to get together and have a drink. The fact that he'd organised this meal on the Saturday meant that just like all of that was out of everybody's problem, and everybody could just get together and really just enjoy spending some time together.
yeah, and I think what the best part of it all was that it was like people you played against that day. Like I was literally sat next to Douglas chatting about games and things like that at the time, and like it was just nice to hear people joking and memeing and things like that as well. And it was a really good night. I'm fairly certain though that the restaurant probably wanted to murder us by the end. Um, but yeah, no, massive, massive, great work done by Connor there. Um, Sunday started early. Jesus,
Too
I
early.
think yeah for a lot of us, but it's understandable because obviously people wanted to get home. Depending on drivers, obviously how far you were going. Um, I started the day playing this guy called Ed, who'd run Mother of Dragons all day one, and then decided to run Barry day two. Now I played into Chris's Barry on the end of day one, and he'd never played Barry as a commander in the same way that Chris had never played Barry as a commander on the day before. So I played two Targaryen players who'd never played Barry, and I was like, I'm fairly certain I know what the deck does better than you do, because obviously spent a long time studying it, talking about it. Um, so he used it as an experience, like a chance to talk about it and things like that, and he was talking about like strategies and stuff while we were playing, and it was really fun. Um, and I got to have a great moment where he murdered a unit. He was absolutely over the moon that he was able to burn one of my units off the table, and then Mance shot down a dragon before the dragon ate him. So I was happy. Um, my second game of Sunday was against Psychosti. Anyone who knows, been here for a while, will know that absolute meme that is me not pronouncing his name correctly. No, but Psycho Stee from Liverpool, who I finally got to meet in person. Stee is an absolute legend. He's fantastic. He's brilliant. He's just great. Absolute lovely guy. And he gave me a real run for my money. I played a game plan that he just countered the game plan. He kept a unit alive the whole game, and I couldn't get through. If the unit had failed, if the unit dies, I think I can push through. I think I can win the game. But he did exactly what he needed to do to stop me getting through. And that's what a good game plan is about. And he played it really well. So yeah, I lost the game.
Absolutely. I think Steve did really, really well with Starks. He finished fifth, but he was on the top table. Come game six, and like really, I was genuinely surprised at how far he took Starks and how well he was doing. So fair play to him.
Yeah.
He's had a blinder there. He's had a blinder.
Yeah, yeah. And we were talking about it afterwards, and someone was saying that he'd actually done really well in the local leagues in Liverpool,
Mhm.
and actually he'd been piloting those kind of Stark lists well for a while. So I'd be really interested personally. I really want to match up with him because we're now 1-for-1, one game each against each other. So I really want to have a rematch and want to beat him. In truth, I want to go out there and I want to kick his ass and make him eat dirt because he beat me, and that's what I think is the right thing to do after you get beaten: is go out, get better, and come back and beat him. Right? That's the plan, isn't it, Carlo? And I played Alan Little as my last game, another Stark player, and that went the other direction, unfortunately for him. He did not have a good time. He didn't roll well at all, and he just kind of his units just collapsed. Honestly, they just blew up left, right, and centre. So yeah, bit of a sad day for Alan in that last game. Carlo, your Sunday was a lot more eventful.
Was it?
It was kind of eventful, right?
Yeah, I mean, I came into the Sunday on the top table against Hilo and his double offal. I knew it was going to be really tough, and it ended in a crushing defeat. Which, to be honest, you know what, it is about right. Like, it's not. It was closer than the score suggests. It wasn't particularly close. I did get pretty pasted. There was a route to victory. I would say. I personally, just the way I think about the matchup and the game in general, I think that basically you're going to lose that matchup unless the stars align somewhat for the Targ player, if the Night's Watch player doesn't make a mistake. So I do think the Targs have the best toolkit out there to force like the Night's Watch player to make a mistake. That mistake is normally, what I'm talking about there is probably a positional mistake where they end up all twisted inside themselves, unable to pivot or shift or do something they need to do to get as many shots as they're used to getting.
Mm-hmm.
I played relatively assertively, got some veterans right round behind his whole army, started attacking some conscripts. At the time, I felt like it was a calculated risk to go in there and like double tap some conscripts in the flank and then the rear. I knew that basically if he had Watcher on the wall, then it was just game over. Like, and that's the unfortunate part about the matchup for me, is that like basically I think that like you're right on the line as the Targaryen player, the way I see it, as you're just on the line of like you could win, but you have no like ways to get back into the game if anything goes wrong, and like that wrong includes your opponent gets one more shot than you expected because they're going to be able to maneuver with a Watcher on the wall. Mm-hmm. I could have shot at the time. I thought it was a risk worth taking, but in hindsight, I think it's just a mistake because, you know, like the shot, the extra maneuver that he got off of it. Well, actually, what I had to do was I had to cancel it with Barristan. Mm-hmm. And that led to him then being able to use Relentless instead. So, you know, like it's effectively the same thing. He either gets a double action by using Watcher and then activating, or I block Watcher and then he gets Relentless back. Actually, I think I probably should have just let Watcher go, because delaying his activation order of Relentless probably would have been better. There were a few things that I definitely could have done better, a bit more tactics card play, a bit more whatever. And I think that if I had done it perfectly, I think I would have lost by marginal victory rather than by crushing.
Right.
So personally, I genuinely think, you know, a big props to Hilo, you know what I mean? Like, did not make a mistake. But I believe that the Targaryen player in that matchup to myself has to force a mistake. And he did not make a mistake, and therefore I will definitely lose. Plus, I made a few things that could definitely have been better, and therefore it wasn't just a loss, it was crushing. You know, and I do think that's fair. Like, he played close to flawless. I made some mistakes. Crushing was absolutely the way it deserved to be.
Yeah.
But I would. I would say that in reverse, I genuinely believe that, like, I would happily sit there and play that awful list and say there is nothing outside of Night's Watch that can beat that list if it's played right.
Mhm.
Like, I know people have talked about it on various discords in the past, and like there was even some concept of like a King of the Hill or whatever of whether or not the list was beatable. But actually, the worst part of that is normally it's the people who say it's beatable who are saying that they're willing to pay the Night's Watch. And it's like, well, that proves nothing. You're the one who thinks it can lose. I think that it can't lose unless you make mistakes. There are factions out there who can force them better than others. But,
Yeah.
I was happy enough with the game.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I do think, and I have a huge amount of respect for Hilo, because
Mhm.
he's not just proved it once. He's like, and I know he didn't technically win he obviously didn't win London, but he went out there and proved that he could do well. And yeah, I mean, he says in chat there, Burning Tycho just get rid of Barristan. That is exactly kind of like interesting plays. I've talked about it in stats before on Tourney Grounds in the free float video. Like, sometimes burning Tycho for not healing 5, but the effect that it has is actually
Mhm.
more powerful than using it to heal 5. And knowing that is situation, and knowing that Tom knew that in that case, does show that he has a higher level of understanding in the matchup than I think some people would.
Mhm.
Um, but on the flip side, I still maintain my stance with Tom in that I really want him to see something else. Not because not because he doesn't deserve to be a good player. I think he's a very good player, but I still haven't seen him play anything but awful. So separating him from that list is difficult. Um,
Mhm.
and he did meme a bit, joke a bit, but I actually think he's semi-serious in that he won a Baratheon starter set, which we'll get onto in a minute. But he did say he would run Baratheons at the next event he attended. Um, yeah, I
Good
think
luck.
that good luck. Well, the update's coming around the corner, right?
Welcome to the other end of the spectrum.
They might be OP.
Um,
I do think Tom is very good though. I do think so.
yeah,
I actually think him running awful
absolutely.
undersells his ability because him running off all the time means his rating doesn't go up as much as it probably should. Um, I probably think that he's an 1800 plus player in terms of stats rating. Um,
Uh, to Carl, different Tom.
yes. Um,
Um, Back to Ariakis's question. The one thing that I was, I don't know, annoyed at, disappointed, was that in that matchup, which is what I had built Drogo for, I had very specifically built Drogo for, but I hadn't managed to play a practice. Nobody actually plays Night's Watch at our club. It was all theoretical, and it, sort of worked. I absolutely would rather have had, in playing it out, I would rather have had the Barristan and Jaqen, which I originally had and was the last thing I changed. I turned Jaqen into Illyrio and the Fortune Seeker. Now, in general, in most of my games, I played Drogo for the first 4 games of the tournament. The Fortune Seeker and Illyrio were the better choice. They made me very, very strong. It made my list much more all comers. It made it a much better generic all round gaming list. But in that specific matchup, there were so many things that I wanted to block. There's 2 Relentless, which is what really my mind was set on. And I thought, oh, well, I won't get to block both every turn. So what's the point? But there's also, Watcher on the Wall. There's also Tycho's Healing. There's also Supply Aid. Even if I'm going for 1 unit, I want to be putting it on, blocking something, and then putting it back on the same unit again later on in the round. But I never got a chance to particularly use the Illyrio 3 heal as a replacement effect. And actually, when you really understand the matchup and look at it, there's almost no point in healing 3 wounds because every shot that they do averages like about 8 damage ish. into say veterans, right, which is the unit that you have to keep alive and the unit that they're going to focus on if you give them at all an opportunity to do so. So your entire strategy has to be about avoiding being attacked, not healing after you're attacked. So I am annoyed that I swapped my lists. That was my original idea, and actually that original list was probably better and would have given me maybe it would have given me a lot more confidence to play an activation game because I can constantly block two runs to play a bit slower. But I felt that I really had to go in as soon as I could because at best I could get to equal activations with him. And that means that there will always be a tempo play for him to take last action, look at one of my units, and then he'll just open with the classic little fingers, bag, shot, short range, blast. He's just going to kill a unit, right? And I don't have that capacity to do the equivalent, or the only capacity I have to do an equivalent is with veterans onto conscripts. And that requires very specific positioning, whereas effectively the crossbowman can do it in reverse at any given time. Mm-hmm. The only other way I think that you can possibly win the matchup is if you just YOLO Drogo into things and just hope that your opponents stand and shoot, and then other helping fire and stuff don't do much. But that's a very dicey way to play, and I don't think that the odds are in your favor. So that's not the way I like to play. That's not what I wanted to do, and it's why I ended up having to do after the game was already sealed up, And it didn't go badly, to be honest. It went okay, but the game was already tied up at that point.
Mm-hmm. So after that, though, obviously you picked up a loss and you fell down into, at the time, it was the 3-1 bracket. I was in the 4-0 bracket at that period, but then you played into the 3-1
ish. Mickey played. It's an incomplete 64, yes. And Mickey almost purposefully played at the very bottom of that bracket the entire time. So he actually spent the entire tournament as an undefeated player playing people who had lost games.
That is true. Not purposefully. It was just because.
No respect for the submarine route.
No respect, except I play someone who, well, I won't go into it. I would have been picking up a bit harder opponents, but my first game was so close that I did end up submarining. It would have been nice to not be doing that, obviously. It did mean I actually lost a shot at the Night's Watch, which I wanted to have a shot at Tom's Night's Watch because I had a plan. I'm not going to say what it was because it didn't.
Did you fuck?
I did.
Did you fuck?
Of course you're going to say that. Of course you're going to say that.
Mate.
But yeah.
That's a lie. You constantly say that the Night's Watch Offal match is unwinnable for Free Folk. I wanted a shot at Offal. I built a list specifically for it. Yep. You desperately did not want to have to face Night's Watch.
All right, fair enough.
How history rewrites itself.
It is funny, isn't it, Carlo? It's game 4, game 5. Game 5. Your game 5 was against.
Game 5. I played Duggars. Duggars actually played all 3 of DWG across the weekend.
Yep.
I took MOD because I know Lannisters and I know that they can't beat MOD. The MOD list, I can talk about it more now that, I don't want to reveal too much about the strategy. Not that it was like super secret or anything, but the MOD list was built entirely to play into an MOD mirror. But for the reasons that I'm so acutely aware of with Lannisters, even though it's not an optimal MOD list in any way into more general lists, I just knew that Lannisters would have a shit time of it, so I played it into Lannisters anyway. Because like super heavy morale based Lannisters could have upset my Drogo list.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And
It ended.
it was savage. You know, it was as I expected, which is, you know, it was very difficult. Duggars didn't come particularly close to getting to kill a dragon once I managed to tie up and kill the flayed men, which is his only real chance.
Yeah, yeah. The panics just do nothing. The red click style panic stuff just has
Yeah,
nothing on a dragon.
he has too many points invested in panic, and the dragons are too resistant to that style of damage. So, you know, like it's just a really bad matchup for him.
Especially given that there's no panic token output from that particular list that he has, which makes it
Yeah.
even more difficult. Yeah, and then your last game was against Chris, right? You got to put your Mother of Dragons mirror list into actual
Finally
practice.
put that MOD mirror match to the test. It didn't work it wasn't quite as good as my theory had it. My theory hadn't comprehended how important Barry blocking Dracarys was into the matchup. So every other MOD, really realistically, other than the people who run Pike, is a mistake. Every other MOD will run Barry.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris was actually running the Stormcrow Mercenaries variant, which runs Barry and Jaqen. And so he was able to constantly deny various important abilities. But on the flip side, I have an extra activation. Mm-hmm. It was a very cagey match. I will actually agree with Chris, which is I think that the MOD mirror is terrible. Like I do actually I didn't not enjoy playing Chris. Chris was a great opponent and it was incredibly close and incredibly tense. The kind of game that you want to play, but the MOD mirror itself isn't enjoyable because everything is effectively like predetermined. Like dragons kill dragons into attacks, and unless you're going to fail like a terrible panic test because of your opponent dragon's vicious, they will never ever kill each other in one attack. Mm-hmm. So you're always, and with 2 dice and nearly always on the charge, it's almost impossible for you to miss. So you're literally, it's very predetermined. You can literally work out like, and so it's entirely about janky positioning, all about activation control, all about timing. And he played very well. I effectively sacrificed strength on the board whenever possible. It was the secret missions game mode. It was Dark Winds, Dark Words. I sacrificed position on the board whenever possible for points, and it got very close at the end, but I managed to win by a large points margin just like a turn or two before I was going to get wiped. Mm-hmm. He was in a stronger board position. He was better off. But I managed to secure VPs on the way there by forcing the right missions into play at the right times. It was very close. So I do think that 8 activation MOD has a slight advantage into the mirror, but mm-hmm. not as strong as I thought it would theoretically, not having really ever played the match out before. I hadn't thought how cagey we would play and how much we would depend on Dracarys as a way to push through extra damage. Incidentally, you know, like the fact that Chris played Dracarys was an important reason why I'm up on VPs, because I managed to get Dany onto an objective, whereas he sacrificed her activations to make extra attacks. Doug says he doesn't like Dark Winds, Dark Words. I think it's interesting. I do like it as a mode. I think it would have been the one mode where I would have said I could have beaten Kylo's Othel, because Othel will win in any straight fight as long as there is constantly changing objectives. Targaryens are the best action to like be able to constantly change what they're about to do, like to get into opponent's deployment zone, to destroy a specific unit, to like go down, like really dive in hard on one unit, or run away because you need to control objectives right now. The maneuverability of Targs is the one game where I think that Dark Winds or Winds of Winter can really favor them. I think that as long as the game mode is a fight, Othel list with double crossbows can't be beaten. As long as you can make it a fight
It is actually interesting.
based game as opposed to an objective based game, then you will win.
Yeah, it is actually super interesting that Here We Stand and Darkwing Dark Words and Clash of Kings, actually, which is really interesting, are by far the lowest win rates for Othel by considerable margin. The play rates of the majority of games is about equivalent. But Darkwing Dark Words, I can as you say, very much see it. And Here We Stand with like respawning units. Like, it doesn't actually play into what Othel wants, because then you've got something respawning behind you, which actually doesn't have a terrible shot. If it's like a BBG unit or something like that with out of activation or non-activation charging stuff, can actually put real big dents into the Night's Watch lists.
Yeah.
So I can see that why those drop-offs are there. But you are right. I mean, Winds of Winter is quite high because secret missions from hand tend to be less missions overall in play, or less, and there's nothing on the board.
Yeah, that's
right?
why I say like
You don't score on the
changing
board.
objectives. I think that as long as Othel and ranged in general and really oppressive damage based stuff, if they know what their route to victory will be right from the start and they can plan and prepare for it, then you just need to enact it. If you have to be constantly guessing about what will happen next, that's where their lack of mobility actually comes to bite them, and that's the only place that they're not the favorites.
Interesting. Someone who watched Jab and I played up with absolutely no interest in playing. Yeah. There are positions where it's standoff and things like that. One of the things that, yet again, which some people mentioned and some people didn't like, and it is true, I guess, people don't like the secret missions from the simple fact is they forget what they are on every given round.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's players'
People
faults.
forget to look at them often enough.
That is the players'
people
fault.
in general forget to play the objectives that they know about.
Yeah.
Often enough. Like, most people don't play the 5 objectives that are on the board with enough regularity when they first play the game. You have to be a very regular kind of tournament style player to like really know that it's very key to victory that you play the objectives, stop going after these kills, because unless it's part of a very specific game plan, that won't get you a win. Throw in that these things are constantly changing and you have to constantly look at them and constantly be thinking about whether or not it's in your favor to change them, because you can. And yeah, I can see why people don't enjoy it as much. I can see why they maybe think that it's like such an extraction from what they think the game is. But that's similarly along the lines of people who only want to play Fire and Blood, for example, because they think that the game should just be about killing each other. So, personally, I disagree. I see why people don't want to play them.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. It's more from a game management side rather than the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and that was the event. Obviously, there were some awards given out at the end, and we'll go through the different players for different factions. Some of them were hard fought and hardly won. I was going to say there, and hardly contested, hotly contested even, and won. With great success. Some of them less so. And I'm not going to lie. For example, when there's only 2 free folk players in there, and the other free folk player's been playing, I think he said like 6 months, and he's quite new to the game. I'm not trying to, say that it's an generally speaking, an easy decision who's going to win, but you can probably guess who's going to win that one if there's only two players. So there were ones like that where it was kind of like, yeah, well, that
But,
happens.
but they
But
were
the
all
most,
contested, at
yeah,
least, down at the
they were.
LGT, we only had the single neutral player.
Yep.
And we had better fraction variety than that.
Yeah.
There ended up the numbers changed a tiny bit with just like a couple of people changing, but it was 20% Targs, 20% Lannister, 20% Stark. By the end, 20 and a bit percent Greyjoy.
Mm-hmm.
No faction absolutely blowing the rest out of the water, and then even things that aren't normally represented, neutrals was a hotly contested best in faction, Baratheons hotly contested best in faction. So it was great to see.
So we're going to go through them all just so everyone knows. We've got John Craig is the guy giving out the medals. This is Douglas for his best in faction Lannisters. So obviously congratulations to Douglas there. And he ended up as say the only or the best Lannister in the 4-2 bracket. If we actually go back a second, you'll see that Doug literally missed out. He would have won if it come down to tertiary tiebreakers, but he lost out by one secondary point. So it was a close run thing for the Lannister top player. In at number 2 was that's the wrong
Chris
one.
Eustace.
Chris Eustace. No. So in at number 2 we have that's the wrong order. I have got the wrong order here. Give me a second.
Well, I'm sure Alan Technic will really, really appreciate me telling everybody that he was absolutely over the moon. He was over the moon with being the mid-table master, coming in 23rd out of 44. He was so happy, and I'm sure he'll be so happy that I'll tell everybody that he was so happy about it.
I think the best bit was that he was happy because he won something, and more importantly, all of the dead meta guys were taking the piss out of him, but then he was rolling it up. He absolutely loves it. All right, so at number 2 we have I'm trying to find where they are because I've got them all saved up, but they're all tiny, so I can't see who's actually in them. I'll do this one next because it's easy. Next one was myself as the best free vote player, to nobody's surprise except mine, and everyone will know that I'm surprised by that because I didn't win it at the London GT. I got beaten on tiebreakers. And that was nice, but as I said, it wasn't exactly a hotly contested one at all. In at our Stark, it was, of course, Psycho Stee. Stee was the best Stark in attendance, coming in at number 6, I think? 6th? 5th. He did tap up Dean. Came in at 5th, so well done to Stephen Connor. We had the best Targaryen next, Carlo. And the best Targaryen was in fact not yourself, because you didn't count. The way they did the prizes, because Carlo came second in the event, they actually gave him the runners-up stuff, and Dean Rothwell, Littlefinger, got the best Targaryen, or second best Targaryen, as they awarded it.
Submarining up from a 0-2 start into a 4-2 by the end. A strong recovery. From a poor opening couple of games.
Yeah. There were more, right? There were more and more and more. We'll keep going through. So the next person will celebrate, and again in the same vein that didn't win the event, but was the next best in his category, and that was Scabman, Kieran. Those of you who don't read Kieran's blog, it's Kieran Scabman who came the second best Night's Watch player in the event, the only other Night's Watch player to be in the top 4.
Yep.
And he was a 5-1 record as well. So well done to Scadders, and running his double John, as always is the case. Scabman, anyone who thinks, by the way, that Scabman plays powerful lists or anything like that, he does. They are good lists, but also Scabman absolutely loves John. Like, John is literally his favourite character in A Song of Ice and Fire. He doesn't care if John's powerful or good or anything like that. If Jon Snow was shite, Scabman would still play John. um,
Do that.
it's
He's a John Diehard.
he is a John Diehard, and you know what? Massive respect to the man for sticking with it, even in a time of absolute wealth, really, in comparison to some of the other factions
Yeah,
out
I
there.
was going to say it's not during it's not during the tough times right now.
No, but hey,
They'll be back, I'm sure.
they will be back, and when they're back, I can imagine it will be a real struggle for him. I really hope it isn't. I really hope they don't over nerf Night's Watch. Um, we could talk a long time about that. I think that would be problematic. The best Baratheon was up next, who is, if I can find him here, this man. Maybe I can't. Am I an idiot? Am I stupid? Oh no, there he is. There we go. Ross. Ross Joyce, who
Mhm.
is the guy who ran the Always Winter podcast, kind of like run through of the lists, right? With John before the event. Anyone who did listen to the podcast, it was Ross who was on with him, I'm fairly sure. So yeah, well done as the best Baratheon, which ironically not as hotly contested as nearly any other event in the UK for a while, right?
No, yeah. The Baratheon fan club wasn't quite out in full force up at
No.
the Scottish GT. It was definitely the Greyjoy fan club.
Yeah. The best Greyjoys. Now this one was hotly contested. It was the most apparent faction at the GT, and it was won by Dead Meta's Aaron, otherwise known as Midnight, Aaron Taylor. A lovely guy, Aaron, by the way. If you don't watch any of the Dead Meta stuff, on Wednesday nights they live stream over on Twitch. Do check out the channel; it is great fun. They do just meme, and as I found out in the weekend, they literally play in a converted like shed. So huge amount of kudos there for Aaron. But the best Greyjoy, yeah, absolutely wrecking it with his Greyjoy lists. So yeah, good work.
And
Last,
a shout out from me to Dead Meta guys for letting me sit up with them until like 2 a.m. Playing. we'll blame we'll blame my poor performances on that. Staying up with the cool guys.
that was hilarious. So throughout his entire shout out there, is the audio cut out for a minor second. So the Dead Meta guys will never get the full appreciation of Carlo's love,
No,
but definitely
no.
they'll know. They'll know what it was about. That's a message for just them, encoded in a secret code that only they can decipher. By the way, Carlo's into Flesh and Blood now, and like he's about to sink all of the funds into Flesh and Blood. I can tell. So he probably will travel to Redford to play with you more often. You say no now.
I don't have time. I don't have time for another thing, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would probably be quite deep into Flesh and Blood.
And last but not least, this is a returning player, right, to best in faction status, but not the best in faction status that we know him for. So massive kudos to this man here, Harbo, another one of the Dead Meta guys, Adam, who won best in factions for neutrals.
Yep.
He won best in faction Baratheons. London, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Harbo is actually a master just shoving units down people's throats. Like actually like just a playstyle that I'm just genuine. I'm not good at it. Like I actually just can't do that. Even a faction like Targs, which are generally quite good at it, and Blood Riders are probably the perfect unit that ever has existed for it. I don't like to do that. But Harbo will take a faction like Baratheons and stick like Elden and Stag Knights and just shove them in your face, and you're suddenly like, what? What? How do I deal with this unit? Like that's what wait, what? Like that's not what all the other players do. And I think he's done pretty much the same with some flayed men in a neutral list. So like fair play to him. He's taken both factions as far as they can in a big tournament. So big props.
No, actually, massive amount of kudos. And we were talking about in the car on the way back. I'd only twigged in the car that it was He'd won the Brathian one as well, and I'm like, that man has put himself through an absolute ringer at some of the bigger events out there, just to battle it out with the actual hard fought stuff. So yeah, no, massive kudos to him. That leads us out of the best in factions into we might as well do them, get them out of the way now. Carlo did in fact come second in the event as the runner-up. There we go. There's a lovely picture of Carlo in case you don't know what he looks like. This is what he looks like on a more casual Sunday afternoon. This is his get-up for when he's outside of the house. Less hoodie, more mask, less smile. I don't know what else to say about him. If none of you have ever met Carlo in public, this is what he looks like in public. It's completely different to what he's like when he's on Tourney ground, where he looks like that over there. I have no idea where I was going.
But for those who don't know, because some people don't, and some people made comments over the weekend, take note of the size of John Craig and myself, and reflect back on the size of Mickey receiving a prize from John Craig, and you'll suddenly realise that there is a good foot of difference in the different heights between us. So,
oh yeah,
I
don't know. Hey, it's not a foot. You're only just over 6 foot. It's half a foot.
And you're under 5, so.
Years old or feet? I can't remember. Right. So that ends the kind of best in faction, the best player, except the man himself, the best player, which was of course Hilo. And I love this picture because Hilo's face looks quite red. I saw him just before he went up award crying because he was so happy to have won a tournament of such big caliber, and also crying because he knows that he'll never be able to run offal outside of the house ever again. So yeah. Also, yes, the 5'7" gang, Tom. Thank you very much. Massive respect. 5'7" is the height where it's at.
At 5'7", I think that's a lie, Tom.
No, John's just really tall. But no, huge congratulations to Tom. As I said, he's now proved it twice, basically. Technically, going undefeated across 2 GTs. That's obviously a technicality because of the draw. So yeah, no vitamin D beyond the wall. It is true, Marwin. It is true. Who runs Bartertown? Oh God. I am a tiny man. It's true. So, on to the less factions, tournament performances, anything like that. We've got a couple, and the first one that I'm going to cover of these extra ones, if you will, is Stuart Thomason, who played Starks literally all week. He got best sports. He played Starks. He was playing there on Friday night when we arrived, and he was getting absolutely bummed, and he absolutely loved it. He was getting shredded apart by someone on Friday night in a game, and he really is. He's an absolute joy to talk to. He's so keen. He absolutely loves the game. He loves everything about it.
Very enthusiastic about the game.
Yeah. And you know what? He was when I spoke to him briefly on the Saturday, midday, and he was 0-2, and he was like, I'm doing it. I'm going to come bottom table. I've killed some units, and that all that matters. And I was like, fair enough. You know what? With someone like that who's just there to enjoy themselves and have good opponents and good games, and he really did enjoy playing. I think everyone who played into him, rightly so, said he was a fantastic opponent, and I think it was literally a hit. We talked to John briefly at the end. I think he got 6 votes out of 6 for best sports. So literally everyone who played against him said he was great. So massive kudos there. We then had the Wooden Spoon Award. There we go. I couldn't think of what it's called there. The Wooden Spoon Award went to this man here. As it turns out, this man here, who was new to me, I didn't speak to him all weekend. This is Matt. He only recently picked up the game, I believe. He hasn't been playing that long. I didn't get a chance to talk to him or anything. But yeah, he's not been playing the game that long. And again, he said he absolutely loved the event to John and things like that, which is fantastic. Kudos to anyone who enjoys an event. And, coming in bottoms actually got a bit of style. You don't want to be penultimate. That's the thing, right? Penultimate positions, the worst. Whereas wooden spoon, you wear that with pride,
Absolutely.
and you get prizes, right? Like a spoon. Can't complain at a spoon. Um, we then move into the painting stuff, and the painting stuff. We'll go through all of the stuff here, but the painting stuff was a bit of a I don't know. Well, you say, Carlo. What are your thoughts on the painting stuff? Go on.
I was really pleased with the number of entries. I was really impressed by the standard of the armies, particularly. Um, the individual models were obviously there's some really really high quality stuff that got sent off. Unfortunately, Duncan Rhodes couldn't make it to the event, but pictures were taken and sent to Duncan Rhodes, and he judged individual miniature and also best unit. Um, they were great, and I they were always really high quality painting. But I was really impressed by the number of armies that people put out on display, fully painted, which is really just where the game comes alive for me. I've said it for a while that like I've been really trying to push myself to always put painted stuff onto the table.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really good event for that. And I think that it's really good that people continue to do it and promote it. Though I do think it's important that people don't make it a requirement. I know that there are some places that say that it's that it's a requirement to play fully painted miniatures. Pretty much France is about the only place that I've heard of it, but I think it's quite regular in their tournaments there.
Mm-hmm.
And I do understand that it can kind of curb ideas of people always using the most powerful stuff or the most powerful factions, but I don't think it actually achieves that in any real way myself. I just think that it penalizes people who aren't into that aspect of the hobby. And I think that you should be championed for painting, not penalized for not. Although, I will berate Mickey constantly for not painting stuff. And as you'll find out, it's worked.
Yeah, it actually has, right? Obviously, taking through the best individuals here at the moment. I was actually going to say some of the stuff here was really nice. I know the GT, it's really hard to compete with the likes of Tim Whitney and things like that, and some of the stuff that he puts out. But some of this stuff I thought would have looked completely brilliant alongside the likes of what Tim was producing. And it would have given Tim a run for his money. And giving Tim a run for your money is a good thing, I think, in the UK painting scene. Um, and yeah, so the single miniatures, the solos, if you will, were generally speaking brilliant. A lot of neutrals, which I thought was interesting, like a Varys and Tychos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Dan was the eventual winner with his Brienne. Um, and I spoke about this with him afterwards, and I spoke with Carlo obviously about this as well. That we cannot stress enough how fucking good the Brienne Neutral Hero 2 box
Mm-hmm.
model is.
Yeah.
Like, and I
I
don't.
would if I was gonna just I've painted it. I'm pretty happy with the paint job that I did, but just the model brings it out so well. And if I was gonna enter an individual, if I was gonna take a model specifically to enter into an individual painting contest, I would probably put my Brienne in.
Yeah.
But I didn't paint her on purpose to be, hey, this is my individual painting caliber miniature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is fair enough. Um, I obviously Dan's absolutely superb there, in my opinion, and the model is great. The model is very
Yeah.
conducive to a good paint job. Um, there are other models in the game, and that's actually where I would again shout out to Tim Whitney. I think a little bit like Stark Outriders. Painting a Stark Outrider unit is actually you can do a good job, but you're working with a pile of crap to start with, to be honest. So it's a struggle. Whereas pick a good part of painting a good model is choosing a good model to paint. So
Mm-hmm.
it is important that. Other ones there. There was actually a really interesting conversation I had with Marwin, which we'll get to when we see the painted armies in a minute. Someone had really nailed. We see the pinky purple here on Roos. Someone had absolutely nailed
Mm.
Bolton pink on their flayed men, which we'll see later on. Absolutely lovely. And Stuart Tomlinson for this. I really thought this was brilliant.
Yeah.
I really like this. I saw this on this Friday when we turned up. Um, yeah, honestly, I think there was some stiff competition with some of the stuff, and we'll see more of Greyjoys. Painted armies. We'll see a lot more Greyjoys later on because there were some impressive feats out there for painted armies. Um, lovely, and then another very uh, nice and clean Varys. So um, we had best solo, and then we had best units, right? And I'll go through these a little bit faster. Carlo, your dragon, which shout
There's
out to
me.
Carlo, right? Carlo actually managed to paint his entire army on time. Were you still working Thursday night?
Friday night.
Oh yeah. I forgot you actually based them in the hotel, weren't you?
Yeah,
I
I
forgot
bet I
that.
based them in the hotel.
I forgot
Yeah.
that.
I entered the unit because I was proud of it. Like I was proud of what I'd achieved. It is my worst painted army. But
Fair.
I achieved it in 2 weeks, and I was really genuinely proud of myself for what I achieved in 2 weeks. I was really, really happy because that is an order of magnitude faster than I would normally paint an army. I would normally paint an army in at least 20 to 40 weeks, i.e., 6 months to a year, to get an army painted to the table. So I was really, really, really happy that I just had an army there, and I was happy enough. I was so happy to just be able to put it on the table for the painting competition and say, "Hey, I painted this army." You know.
Shout out to Duggars, by the way, for these iron makers. The custom bases and everything that he put on them, I thought was really good. I really liked specifically his iron makers, and I love the little extra, the crew of the Black Wind there, they included on there as well. There was some really nice stuff overall in this category. I don't necessarily think the pictures do it justice in all cases. It's a massive shame in some cases that
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't be there in person to judge these, because I really think pictures never do models justice, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't show them. Karstok's done very nicely indeed. A good mix of stuff. Was it Ian I was talking to? Talk about his dragons and like the effects he's got on them, which was really interesting. How people get it, and we've seen these before, right? But Dan's Hedge Knights, I
Mm-hmm.
can never get over how good Dan's Hedge Knights are, and they bring a hedge. I mean, law appropriate or what, right?
Yep.
We'll come back on to Chris Stone. His army, when we see it later on, was quite a small number of stuff, but you look at it and it's like a small amount of stuff done to a very high level.
Yep.
I do think Chris's army was superb. And Stuart's she-bears. Actually, massive thing for Stuart in this one. The faces on these she-bears. This picture really does not do those faces justice whatsoever. They are unbelievably detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I entered Mag. For those patrons who were watching me, I'd taken apart Mag and entered him into the tournament, or the painting thing, because Carlo said I never paint anything, basically. And so yeah, I painted up Mag, and Duncan genuinely thought he was the best one there, which was nice. I don't do hobby stuff often, so it was nice to have someone say it was great. So I'm proud of that myself. But to be honest, I think there was some, absolutely lovely units there that just deserved just as much, if not more, kudos for that, I think.
So Mickey's proved that the berating worked. So now we just have to, me and Dan will just shift to berating him for A, never fielding the painted units that he has, and B, not painting the rest of his army.
Yeah, I
Mickey spent the 2 weeks before the tournament painting a unit specifically that he didn't use the entire tournament. So
to be fair,
I'm going to steal his kudos and say, why wasn't it in your lists?
To be fair, I was going to put it in my lists originally, and then on the last Friday, on the list lock day, I ended up going down a dark route of
You
thinking
backed out.
Yeah, I backed out. I pussied out mainly because I played against Carlo, and the game was over at round 2 because Mag died to a dragon, as is classic, and that made me not want to use Mag at an event. So Carlo, it's actually your fault that you didn't see this guy on the table.
Supposed to throw a game just so you'll use a unit.
Yeah, why not? No. So we'll move on to best painted army. Now, best painted army. If I get this up here, got all of them here. Da 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 da. There we go. Ciao. So, best painted army. There was quite a lot of entries, which was really good to see.
Yeah.
And that is fantastic, as you said before. Some of these I will have to make up. This is mental. That is Victoria's entire Baratheon force. She ran both armies and entered both into the painting competition as like, here's
Yeah.
a massive Baratheon horde of stuff. And there is some really nice stuff. One of the things
I actually entered both of my lists into it as well, and they're less stuff than half of hers.
Yeah.
My 2 lists comprise of less painting than one of her lists. But that's a classic Stannis Renly problem.
Definitely. In response to your comment there, Tim, entirely inspired by yourself with the wood over Jaqen. Like if I hadn't seen that, I never would have done anything like it. So it's entirely your work there that inspired that. So yeah. One thing I'll say about Vicky's army, right? Her Queen's men. If you ever get to play Vicky in real life and she runs the Stannis side list, honestly take a good look at the Queen's men, because she's got this weird, like, it's not non-metallic metal, but it's like a weird buff kind of like matte effect on what you expect to be shiny metal. And I don't know, for me it just really worked. It just, like, there was something about it that just made it really work with the armor that you expect them to have that isn't shiny. It's grim. You know, Stannis' side of the army is very kind of like gritty and, you know, the ash of people being burnt staining the armor. It was really, I really liked it. Just a shout out because I did have spend a long time looking at them. Lannisters, as is always the case with one of your things that you don't like, Carlo, but multicolored warrior sungloaks.
Multicolored. I was about to say multicolored faith, militant. Yeah, that not for me, but just personally.
Stuart, now you would have noticed that some of the bases he's gone for the non-magnet feet, but the like sticky in the base type feet, which, as it turns out, when he was trying to stack them up and things like that, were a nightmare for him. But yeah, no, really nice effects. I know that other people in the community, Corin Halfhand, I think, did it. I know Brett's been working on stuff like it before. Loads of other people out there with like magnetized feet, and I am starting to move towards believing that that is a really good way of doing it. It's just making it work that's kind of hard in a way that you like. That's if I ever get to do my Greyjoys, that'll be it. So yeah, Chris Stone's Targaryens. You see there, there's basically nothing within the army, but the consistency in the basing, the textures, and the Carlo, the dragon eggs, right?
Yeah, the dragons are great. The 3D printed baby hatching dragons as objectives are actually also really, really nice touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really high quality army.
Yeah.
Really nice decals. I actually genuinely want to know where he got the decals for the shields on his pikemen, because they're really high quality without like the shine that I've seen some decals have, or either that, or I'd really love to know the process that he went through to get rid of the shine from the decal.
Do you call it a decal? Isn't it a decal? Or am I an idiot?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, decal.
I don't know. If it is decal and I'm right and Carlo's an idiot, just make fun of him.
Yeah, let me know. I'm not so great with the words.
To be fair, the only people I've ever heard say it have said decal, and I can only think of like 5 people who've ever actually said the word, so he might not be wrong. I've never.
Decal feels like maybe it's a
American.
conjunction of
Yeah,
like D and then a longer word. I don't
Yeah,
know. Whatever. I thought it was just a word made up by Games Workshop, to be honest.
probably was. Um, and this is Carlo's force here.
That's my army.
Yeah, they are nail decals there.
Decal, decal, decal. Yeah, all right. All right. Everybody says decal.
Well, this is an educational stream now, guys. In case no one's realised, this is an educational stream. We do English and maths here. For anyone non-native speaking, definitely come to us for your pronunciation times. um, yeah, no, your army's obviously great, Carlo. Are you a genuine question? Because I know you said that's your worst painted army. But it is by no means bad. Like it's not bad at all. It's still well done. Do you think you'll return to like invest a bit more time, like sprucing it up? I know you
Yeah,
said to me
I hope
before
so.
about highlighting the flesh and stuff.
Normally, normally once I base a miniature, I never go back and paint it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I this army would be has the basis that I could do so much more with. So I hope that I force myself to come back and paint it. But like I've already been playing around with some army lists, and I started painting pikemen. So we'll see.
Fair.
Like if it's honestly a drop in the ocean of my unpainted stuff. So
Yeah.
should I just paint more stuff to the same standard? Because I'm really happy with the standard that it was achieved in such a short space of time. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. We'll see.
Just out of curiosity, and I think Marwin in chat has already beaten us to this. Uh,
Yep.
but chat,
0s out of 10.
0s out of 10. Is anyone going to give it a non-zero out of 10? There's a question. You might be new here. Lockerbie says solid 0. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give the freedmen more of a tan.
Yeah. The flesh on the freedmen is heavy wash based. all of their skin tones are off what they'd normally be, but
Mm-hmm. Brian said, "Can I just pronounce a word?" And I'm going to throw out there and say, "No."
I'm pretty sure it's Gattaca.
It is that. Is that Gattaca? Because
That's Gattaca.
I know
think.
Gattaca as in like Gattaca, which is obviously from something else. There's a film, I think.
I think that's
Gattaca.
how you pronounce Gattaca. You spell Gattaca.
Yeah. Anyway. Uh,
Unless Brian's trying to put me in a trap. It's a trap.
it's a trap. Last question. Tom says, was your overall experience with Targs, Carlo? Did you feel as strong as expected or not? Did you feel like they were crap and weak, and actually you did really well with the Shite faction?
So I built a Drogo list to specifically play into into the Night's Watch match. Like I spoke about, I'm slightly annoyed that I made the one change which made it generically more powerful but less good into that specific matchup. The reason why I'm annoyed at that change is because I feel like that list it pasted everybody who wasn't called Night's Watch, right? And I didn't need that change to paste all the medium factions. It was as strong as I thought. It just doesn't still beat what I think is the king of what is currently out there. But short of that one thing, I think that it has positive matchups into everything. You are the favorite going into most games. Combine it with the fear that people have of Mother of Dragons on top. If you wanted to run a more normal Mother of Dragons list, I think you'd be really hard pressed to be not the favorite in every game except against Othel. And I mean, actually against Othel, like even if against the John list or something like that, I actually think that like you'd be the favorite.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
So I do think, they're super, super strong. Like if Tom hadn't brought Othel, I think I would have won the event.
That's fair. I guess the only consideration I would say is do you think the Drogo list in particular is better than Mother of Dragons? Obviously, Mother of Dragons has some very favourable matchups lower down the tables, but do you think that as an actual meta list, the Drogo is the better go-to meta thing, and the MOD is just kind of like easy win over this faction or that faction or whatever?
Well, MOD has. I think that MOD has more polarizing matchups. Like
Yeah.
people either can deal with it or they can't deal with it.
Mhm.
Um, there are things that Drogo can't deal with, which or not can't deal with, but it becomes you're less consistent against really heavy armor in general. Like things with great saves, you're not just going to be able to roll on through. But luckily, like literally, that is what Mother of Dragons rolls on through. If you got heavy armor, then just MOD will just kill your Barra, kill your neutral, flayed men kind of spam, kill your Lannisters. I think that Drogo, if you build his list, can pick apart Greyjoys. I think they're the free folk. In the way that I've built the pairing, I do actually think it could be just be warped by always playing Mickey, who is a good player and very experienced with free folk. But I do think the free folk, in the way that I've built it, is the worst matchup. Starks, you would again probably play MOD if they're packing Harden spam because Harden just doesn't help you. Whereas that is probably the worst thing that Drogo can face because what he can do is put out tons of hits. And you don't want them to just, and he can put out tons of attacks, particularly with veterans. But yeah, I think that the Targs are strong. Their deck, meh, yeah, but like the pure mechanic of just aggression and mobility means that you have really favorable matchups into lots of things, I think.
That's fair. Um, I just wanted to shout out these two players here at the event for their best armies while we had them up. But Ryan Odlin for his Greyjoys and Brian for the huge amount of work he put into his Greyjoys. Like I actually said to some, I can't remember if I was talking to Marwin, I think, when I saw this. I was like, that is quite literally more effort than I would want to put into quite nearly anything ever.
Yeah.
Just for a piece that doesn't affect anything outside of something to stand the models on. um, like the amount of work that he put in for the display piece alone, never mind the units themselves, is phenomenal. And this for me was actually one of the top ones out there. The personally, I really like the different coloured grasses on the bases to punch things out a little bit. I think it's a fantastic
Mm-hmm.
inclusion, and it really does just break up the greyness of the bases otherwise that would be there. So yeah, no, absolutely lovely. But Jesus Christ, Brian, that's a lot of effort.
Yeah, that's really good work, Ryan.
Yeah,
Really, really, really nice piece.
yeah. Dean's Targaryens. Uh, is it Dean's? Is it Dean's flayed men that are the good pink? Or is it the other ones? I think it might be Dean's. I think it is Dean's. Jesus, I didn't even realise it was Dean's flayed men. Um, Dean's flayed men
Really good
pink
Bolton pink.
is proper Bolton pink. So Littlefinger does actually know his lore and does know how to get his colours right for Bolton. So there you go. Kudos to Dean for that one. Um, uh, people, Brian's like, it's all right, and everyone else is like, that's boss, huge crap on the back, crazy effort. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is crazy effort. So there we go. That is all of the stuff there. We've gone through everything from the event. Is there anything we've missed off, Carlo?
I don't think we actually showed who won Best Painted Army, which was Dan.
No, it was Dan. We did show it off, but yes, I didn't actually talk about it. It was indeed Dan. I will find that quickly for us and bring it back up. Now, I forgot this, mainly because I see this every bloody week. Dan, we spoke about before on Tourney Ground before. This is Dan's army, and again, the picture obviously never quite the same as what it looks like in real life. His was it his Cranagman? We saw the Hedge Knights, but is it the Cranagman trackers with the reeds that did quite well at London GT as a unit? Yeah.
Yeah.
We said it before. Say it again. Every model in Dan's army is different. He customizes every single model. He has got in the works different units for different commanders. He's got a honor guard in the works at the moment for when he robs Rob Commander in Starksworn Swords, so that he can run an independent of Starksworn Swords with the likes of Daisy Mormont and all of those other characters.
Lore appropriate honor guard, like
Lore
actually
appropriate honor guard.
converted the book descriptions with correct sigils and colorings, etc., for every single member of Rob's honor guard. What a nerd!
He's a nerd. Jesus Christ, yeah, it's a lot of work. But no, the man, other than being mental, puts a lot of effort into what he does, and it paid off for him, and rightly so. His army was. I mean, it sounds really bad when I say this, but I don't appreciate how good it is because I see it so often. Do you know what I mean? Like, I look at this army and I'm like, isn't that just like standard painted army stuff now? And it's like, actually, no, that's not the standard, because I look at my stuff and I'm like, God, my stuff's shit or unpainted. So yeah, no, superb army. And anyone who played against him or anyone at the GT would have seen that in real life as well. So there we go. Everybody has been covered. We've discussed everything we could possibly cover, except stats.
Look at that. Somebody dropped out and Targs ended up at exactly 20%, which is what I said their entry would be.
So.
Because I'm always right.
You are always right. It's a horrific curse for everyone else.
Except when I'm wrong.
Counter to probably nobody's surprise, Night's Watch had a 75% win rate overall across the event, with Othel specifically Hilo going 100, 6 and 0. So yeah, that's fairly consistent with what we've seen from Night's Watch before in events. And I said Scabman is another Night's Watch player, ending quite well as well. Free Folk, as I say, was only 2 players, heavily swung by the fact that there was only 2 players, but posted a very respectable 67% win rate, which is still decent. That does mean that the other Free Folk went 3 and 3, which effectively both in the or looking to be in the top half of the table is okay, but it does, as we know, when there's less faction appearances, that's not uncommon. Targaryen with a overall total of 57% win rate. A lot of entries generally means the win rate goes down. There were a lot of mirrors, of course, as well, which meant that some of them got pushed up or pushed down into games which they were then either fighting harder opponents or fighting easier opponents, things like that.
MOD, just on the right hand side, you can see there as an individual list still posting a 78% win rate. So you know, you can see why people, and that's a lot of games, 18 games across the event.
Yeah, it's very telling. The MOD is still, you know, and I really think that MOD is obviously the top commander in the game. I think you can attribute to the fact that MOD in the right kind of hands, it just beats lists that aren't suited for MOD, and it's as simple as that. Carlo said it before, it's very polarizing. And to some extent, there has been some complaints on Reddit or people talking about MOD on Reddit and things like this, among other channels. And it is a case where you have to say to somebody, MOD is probably not actually overpowered within, you know, the top area competitive type play. But the problem is, if someone turns up to a game just casually on a Friday night with some lists and somebody's running MOD, if they didn't think the person was going to run MOD, if they don't have a list build for MOD, and somebody just puts MOD on the side of the table, it's probably just game over.
So part of the problem is that similar to most of the things that people complain about, MOD almost can't not be a heavy skew list. Like, it is intrinsically a really heavy skew. And that's the things that most people complain about. Like, people also complain about like hardened faith spam, right? Like, that's a skew list, which is like, I ignore panic and I ignore like hits from the front. Like, you know, that's a skew list and it causes complaints. It's not actually massively linked to its high level tournament performance. What it's
Mhm.
linked to is that it's possible for you to just not be able to win the matchup based on list selection. You can say the same against Othel Gunline, that it what it is it's saving and ranged damage skew.
Mhm.
When people complain about like Swarm Brother based damage or things that use one crossbow and some combat mechanism and some other thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you play anything that has some of everything, the complaints will go down by an order of magnitude. When you're just skewing into one particular thing, that's when people complain. I know from experience because I nearly always play skew lists. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that it's an incredibly powerful way to play. I play Faith skew more than anybody else anywhere practically. When I play Lannisters, it is so my Lannister play style. But even when I then switch to Targs, I'm just like, okay, I'll play mobility skew. When I switch to Night's Watch, I am like, I'll play range damage skew lists. When I play Baratheons, I'm like, hey, I'll play either a healing skew or I'll play a Faith like morale skew. Like, they're the two things that I'll play in Baratheons. I play skew lists, and I know that it pisses people off. Like, and it's irrespective of the fact that my faction's not very good. My army isn't that powerful,
It's
but
just skewed.
it's skewed, and that's what MOD is. MOD is the most out of the box skew that you could possibly have.
If anyone is interested on did we think that this was going to happen, or if this was something that we have spoke about before? Obviously, we have on Tourney Ground, but go and check out about a year ago episodes 20 odd or something like that. Maybe it's 30. Me and Carlo talked about the 2021 update, and one of the things that we said is that we were afraid that the game would move closer towards list chicken style gameplay, and that's effectively what we're seeing at the top level now. Is you're seeing, like, more so than you did in 1.6, actually, I think you're seeing more skew lists being run with more extreme counters and non-counters,
Mm.
and it really is list chicken. Like, it's possible to run into factions where it's like, I have an MOD list and I have a Drogo list, and their opponent has a counter MOD list and they have a counter Drogo list, and it's, which one do you believe is the best pick into your opponent's two lists, knowing kind of like the worst outcome? Which one is Prisoner's Gambit, right? If the opponent picks perfectly, which is your best list to pick? Um, so that side of the game at the competitive level, at the top end, I think is very apparent.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, MOD is just doing that, but across the board to everybody at every level of the game, um, which is sad. Plus, we spoke about before the ease at which you create an MOD list. Um, it's all pretty much told for you. Starks, and well, Baratheon's
And
also
barrels.
posting a 57% win rate, which actually is respectable across the event. Very respectable.
That's what happened. That's what happens when all the casual, what we call them, Baratheon players go to different factions, and you're left with the faction diehards. You know, like Baratheon's normally up there at 20% distill it down to a core of 7% entries of people who just have been playing Baratheons for a long time, showing their experience and skill with the faction. Win rate goes up.
Yep.
It's very interesting. You know, it's very, very repeatable process, very reliable process. It's not surprising to see that Greyjoys with their 42 have done very badly with their
Very
42
badly.
games played.
What's actually interesting is Stark's at 56%, which I think is actually kind of like, I'm not going to say it's a good performance or a bad performance. I think that's actually kind of like, maybe it's just above what you'd expect across an event, but not within the realms of like, oh yeah, that's fine. Lannisters at 42% though is pushing it slightly lower than you'd expect from Lannisters. Okay, into Mother of Dragons heavy, but into a
Yeah,
Greyjoy
I
heavy
like.
meta as well.
Yeah, true. You'd think the Greyjoys could be a good matchup for them, but yeah, like I would have instantly pointed to a high MOD entry, high MOD
Mhm.
win rate, high MOD pick rate, and said, yeah, Lannisters aren't going to have a good time.
No, but it is kind of interesting to see that it's not that they had a bad time, but perhaps a lot worse than just the Targaryens would suggest. Um, I will say, after round one, there were seven Lannister players in the event who played games. I get there weren't mirrors, and after round one, all seven Lannister players had lost, which is nuts.
Tough start.
Literally round one, 0% win rate, get fucked. Bit savage. Uh, neutrals 38%. Doesn't matter, they're not a faction. Greyjoys, as you said, 36% there. Yeah, picked up by a lot more players, and it really was quite interesting to see that a lot of people were limited again by starter only type stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, almost exclusively no Greyjoy Heroes 2, which we talked about quite a lot last week, which I
yeah.
was surprised at when I saw the amount of Greyjoy entries. I thought that that was driven by people gaining access to Greyjoys 2, Heroes 2. But we saw a ton of Asher, a ton of Victarion, the two most popular commanders by pick. And
There
they
was,
don't quite cut it into high level stuff. But like
yeah,
some players are starting to pick up experience with them. Some players are doing well. I think they're a tough faction to pilot. I think once you start to get it down, the new stuff could make Greyjoys quite a force to contend with.
mhm.
Getting hold of an optimum Greyjoy list in physical person, having it on the table, is probably one of the hardest challenges of A Song of Ice and Fire right now. To be able
Yeah,
to own it and have bought it is the hardest part.
that was actually the biggest limiter. Wasn't necessarily Greyjoy's Hero Box 2 even. It was like there wasn't that many people using many components from Hero Box 1 either. Um, and I could go back and go to 1.5 and talk about, or 1.4 even, and talk about like no Free Folk Hero Box 1, Night's Watch with no Hero Box 1. Um, they weren't nice places to be. Okay, the game was
No.
completely different back then, but without your first hero box, the game is difficult, and a lot of people struggled with not having access to Hero Box 1, never mind Hero Box 2. And yeah, Brian, you made his own Christopher Botley, which is, I believe, if I'm right in saying that. Um, so, yeah, not a good outing for Greyjoys across the board, and there were no commanders that did appallingly, except maybe Victarion at a 29% win rate
Yeah. I
across
told you.
17.
Keep telling people aggressive commanders, they're not as good as you think they are.
Yeah. Oh, that's sad. Sad days. Um, there is something I would be interested in seeing. The Roos picks were quite a lot. Roos didn't, obviously appearing in Lannisters a lot. He didn't produce a positive win rate by the end of the tournament massively. He went
Hmm.
over neutrals and Lannisters where he appeared. He went over 20. He's avoiding mirrors, bearing in mind so it's not quite fully accurate. 33 games, and he went 16 out of 33, so just below 50%, which for Roos Commander is, probably a bit down. He is a very good commander,
Hmm.
but again, very
I mean,
symptomatic of the meta.
he stands out as clearly the best neutral option. Like
Yeah, and probably one of the best Lannisters outside of probably Tyrion. So there we go. Always winter is, as I will say, always finished. Um, so great event. Massive kudos to John Craig and all the guys in Scotland for attending and running it. It was fantastic. Really loved it. And all the players I got to meet. It was lovely to meet Marwyn in the flesh,
yeah,
put a name to a face, and all the various other players that I met and chatted to. Um,
Yeah, it was great to play some people and see some people that I've seen before, and even better to meet new people. Everybody who came up and said hello, people that I've spoken to online. Awesome to put, a face and more than just a face to those names. So can't wait to see same people again in the future and meet more people again in the future, LGT or before.
Hmm.
Interestingly, the calendar for me feels really empty right now. There have been some people talking about, maybe some TTS events kicking off. Local Breeze looking to put together a team, a 3-person team TTS event.
Hmm.
But we're in that spot again, and I'd kind of been ignoring it because I knew that I had the Scottish GT and that I was preparing for it, and that it wouldn't be changing its rules, so I just didn't have to think about it at all. But we are back into that case where people are like, "Is the update coming?" Like when you said it'll be here. Lots of people joking about. Obviously, it'll come out on the Tuesday after the Tourney ground, as always. And I'd love it to, except that that might be a tiny problem for LVO next week, but I think they'll get through it. It'll be fine. Yeah, like news about the patch, says Bloodraven. There isn't any.
Well, there isn't any, but now this is something that's picked up on Twitter. Take this with a massive grain of salt. This could be basically anything, right? But
I mean, if this comes from Twitter,
oh god, yeah, that's why I said a massive grain of anything. Literally, salt might not do enough. You might literally need to go and like get some chili powder to cleanse your brain of what I show you now. But we have here a post from Simon. This was on the 16th. I have this up on one of my other tabs. I'll just find it for us here. But Simon did in fact post this screenshot or this thing on the January
if
the 18th. Okay? And they said, raise your hand if you're going to need a new F5 key in about 16-ish days. As far as I'm aware, this is nothing to do with the Zombicides Kickstarter. And the reason I say that is because the Zombicides Kickstarter is already live and earning money. So why
yeah,
would
will it
people...
be the last day of the Kickstarter?
Maybe it might be the last day of the Kickstarter, but we also know from the Facebook group in the days of Yan and people like that, sit and drink coffee and press F5, whatever. That was a meme in the Facebook group for some time and on Twitter with Simon Games regarding A Song of Ice and Fire. It might be related to that. I'm just saying that could be what they're talking about. What does F5 do, Brian? I'm not sure if a meme or not, but it refreshes the page. Um, so
F5 makes the update come faster, Brian.
uh-huh.
Stop pressing, mate. We need all our thoughts and prayers. Everybody needs thoughts and prayers. Press F5. F5
Yes.
for to pay respects.
Yeah. Um, it is interesting. I don't know why they would have.
Yeah, Mickey really giving away his Twitter feed here.
Is it? I have no idea. Um, maybe I'm just an idiot. It's just whatever. I never
I
use
mean,
Twitter.
Endline's right. Endline's right. Obviously, this date comes up to be January the 33rd. So,
But I mean,
it will still be a January release, guys. Don't worry. Just came out on January the 33rd.
if you think about it though, from the 18th, 16 days is a Thursday on February the 3rd. Now, that actually aligns relatively well. That kind of period, that aligns relatively well when they have been known to update the thing before. I just thought I'd let you guys know. It's there, it's information, it's something. And it's much better to go on than what Simon have said, which is it's coming out soon at the end of January or something like that, which we obviously know is no firm date whatsoever. So.
Yeah. I I want to believe. I want to believe that they are clued in enough to the community that they've held off until after the Scottish GT and LVO, and it'll drop right after those events. That's what I really, really want to believe.
Yeah.
You know,
Sorry.
that's what I'd really love to be true. That they had their ear to the ground and they knew that updates right before those events would not be well received for those particular events and they're high profile.
Sorry, anyone who didn't see Leet Teddy's comment in chat is absolutely brutally brilliant. In terms of overreach, this is annexing Crimea level. Yes, or as Ukraine, as it might currently be in the next couple of weeks. Who knows? Yeah, no, this is overreaching. This is obviously drawing lines in the sand where there may be no lines. But the point is, why on earth would you post this in the middle of a Simon Kickstarter campaign for Zombicides, which is live, to do with something you're posting about anyway? I don't see the correlation between this piece of media and the rest, and that doesn't make any sense to me from a digital marketing perspective, from a campaign perspective. You don't have something saying in 16 days press F5 when the campaign's already funded.
Ear to the ground. Are you high? Yeah, I mean, it's been too long since I've been disappointed. Clearly, so
The thing is,
I dare to dream.
Lockerbie says it's the end of Zombicide, but why would you need to promote the end of Zombicide with an F5 perspective? They're already funded. They've got all the money.
Because they'll be announcing some massive last 2 hours stretch goal or something.
Probably. Well, even on now. I actually don't care about Simon Zombicide. I actually don't care. It's at 4.5 million. Who cares? Let's go back to look at some models. There you go.
All right, but in all seriousness, right? 18 days, whatever, 10 days. Is it 10 days from now?
Yeah,
a
roughly,
Thursday, 11 days. Yeah, something like that. If that is the end of the Zombicide Kickstarter, which might be what they're posting about, once that has ended, we can then realistically have a conversation that something might come out. But until it's over, really don't get your hopes up, guys. Simon are, one trick pony, a one horse cart. They don't have the resources to be concentrating on this huge important Kickstarter and putting out what they see as an entirely optional update to a game which isn't their major focus.
Yeah.
I think that became ever more definite when it was found out through the streams that not just Michael but also Fabio are working on Zombicide. So that means that there isn't. Fabio has been involved in other projects in the past, but not to the level that he would appear on their streams as hey, this guy is front and center part of the team. That means that unless they brought somebody new into A Song of Ice and Fire, which I highly doubt, that their attention will be on Kickstarter, on Zombicide right now. There will not be any attention on A Song of Ice and Fire. If their update wasn't ready in December, then it won't be ready now because they won't have worked. And if it was ready in December, then why the hell did it not come out? Because nothing important came out in December.
And some people say it's the end of the Simon Kickstarter. Yeah, sure. It is. It might just be related to that. If it is the end of the Simon Kickstarter and that's all they're saying, then Northern Realms, Daryl isn't incorrect in chat in that to some extent, you know, he's not wrong. The community is being gaslit a little bit in relation to when this update was supposed to be coming out versus actually when it is. Um, I'm as I said, I'm reaching. I'm taking this. A grain of salt isn't enough. Go and lie on a beach and rub your face in the sand for the amount of salt that you need for what I've just said about that tweet. But the point is, if that tweet isn't related to this game and this update, then we literally have heard nothing since that last stream. That is it. They haven't even said, "Don't worry, guys, it is still coming out because of the Zombicide Kickstarter. It's it'll still be there." We've just resigned ourselves to the fact that it will happen after Zombicide now. And actually, that is it's sad, unfortunately.
Yeah. So when I say that they're working on the obviously, I mean, they don't work on the Kickstarter page, but then there are other similar needs. I seem to have completely.
For some reason, it just properly died there.
Yeah.
There we go.
Keep going probably because. All right. Just some reason, Mickey. I've actually just seen that Mickey's basically downloading something in the background.
I have. For some reason, a download just started on something, so I've just cancelled it. Yeah, I don't know why that died. Apologies for that, guys.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that like there or even though like Fabio and Michael are the ones that we will see, there is a limited set of resources at CMON in general. There will be a set of people who have to update the website. There will be a set of people who have to push through the update for War Council. All these things are resources that are currently on the Kickstarter. So I can't imagine a world where we see this happening before the Kickstarter ends. And really, we don't even begin the clock that, hey, this could happen in an amount of time which CMON work until the Kickstarter is over. That's when their attention will shift back to it, at which point you will then begin to say, okay, how long does it take CMON to do these kind of things? And all I'd just say, like, guys, just go by their previous performance. Like, go by the previous performance, which is last update was supposed to come out in was Jane.
Yeah, random update again. I do apologize. For some reason, Windows has given me all these kind of shitty things that I need to sort out. This is a terrible day for updates. And actually, that's kind of summarizes it, doesn't it? It's a terrible day for updates.
Terrible day for updates.
Ironically. Yeah, no, as Carl was saying there, I really don't think we cannot, in good fortune and good conscience, delay playing the game, delay the game any more than we did in 2021, the 2021 update, than we are now. Forlorn hope, I think.
I don't say this to shit on CMON, although some people hear it that way, and sometimes I do mean that. I say this because the community needs to be ready for that. The community needs to be ready for the fact that, genuinely, guys, based on previous performance, the update might not be out for another 4 months. Right? So please don't put all your hopes and dreams and all your eggs into the basket of the update will be out next week. I'll play when the update's out. Because that way, no games lie. No tournaments exist. No games are played. And we can't go through this cycle every year and not play for 6 months of every year because we believe that we're 1 day away from a patch constantly for 6 months of every year.
It's the old 1 minute to midnight, isn't it? Kind of problem.
Yeah.
And eventually midnight comes, but actually you're not 1 minute away. You're a long time away from that. So yeah, you can't just keep
I,
preparing.
and I do understand it, guys. Like I really do. Like I had the Scottish GT that really focused my mind towards, well, I'll be playing this rule set, so I'm still interested in this rule set. I'm still making armies for this rule set. But I don't have any particular event in my calendar other than the LGT, which we'll come to talk about. But God help us, surely the update will be out by October. But I personally don't have anything I'm aiming at around which I would be kind of thinking about my lists, thinking about what I and and for the first time, it crept into my mind, hey, what should I be playing, or is it worth playing?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Um. It's definitely. Yeah. It's definitely worth just remembering that games should be played. People should just keep being entertained. And if it means that you're talking to new players and getting them into the game, talk about the game as it is now and just say, look, there is an update coming in the future. It might not happen tomorrow. It might happen tomorrow. Just play with what you've got now. Learn the game now. Play with what you've got, and think about the game as it is now with the lists. In the future, it may be changing, but live the changes and experience the changes when they come. Don't wait for the changes. We can all wait for tomorrow, and sometimes tomorrow just simply doesn't come. So Um, should we talk about some other events? You've obviously talked
Yeah, go
about
on.
the GT
I
there.
actually really don't know what's in the calendar.
Cool. I actually wanted to do a first bit about the Grand Tournament. The Invitational, of course, first of all. Let's see who's actually currently signed up. Let's see if anyone is signed up. No, god damn it. And that is because there's only 2 people currently signed up or allowed to come to the Invitational as it is, as they've only the only 2 people who've qualified. And that is Swabek from last season and the first qualifier that we've had so far in the circuit, which is, of course, Hilo from the Always Winter GT. So those 2 players will be invited to the event. That doesn't mean they'll make it, of course. They might not be able to make it, but they are the 2 first invites. Is there one going out to LVO this weekend, Carlo, as well, an invite?
Yeah. The winner of LVO will also gain an invite. Really hope that somebody from the States can make it over. There are also I also have a list of events that I've already run, who I will be contacting over the next week. Hopefully by next week we'll be able to announce whether or not we have our first set of players. Hopefully, in an ideal world, if everybody's really keen, if lots of people with actual quite significant international kind of travel involved can commit, then this time next week we might be able to announce as many as 8 of the 16. There are definitely somewhere around 8 spots plus, depending on whether or not people can commit, can make it. Still available to be assigned to various things. There are some plans in the works around, a TTS or possibly more than one TTS event to actually, give an invite. The whole purpose of the event is to earn an invite. It will be only open to those who intend to come to the invitational. There'll be more details at the time. Whether or not it comes out before the patch, who knows? I'm not intending to wait for the patch, but it's also not going to be very, very soon. We'll see how many people are interested in that and interested in earning a spot. As well, if you are running an event of any serious size, we're talking, like if you can hit 24, then absolutely I would be really, really interested in if it's already run and you managed to achieve 24 and you weren't sure of it, 20, 24, something around there. I mean, especially if you can get to that, holy 32, then get in contact and let us know, particularly if your winner has expressed some kind of interest in coming to the invitational. If you are really, really confident that you are running a big event, like that you can guarantee that you can kind of get to the 24, 30 mark, 32. If you can get that, then we can talk about you being able to promote the event with that spot going to the winner. But you know, I will be I would be annoyed if you turned around and told me actually only 8 people turned up on the day, because you know the intent is that it's the biggest events, the best players who've won events in the past. It can be under any rule set that you want. It can be an ELO event, it can be a TTS event, it can be an in-person event. But really, we're just trying to bring the winners and the best of the Song of Ice and Fire stats community together. You know, this is a stats specifically run tournament, and your tournaments must be on stats because it is to promote and grow and celebrate the stats community.
Yep, 100%. On that similar kind of note, the actual overall GT, the tickets go on sale next week, right? I'm right in saying next week. I've got the information here.
Friday. They go on sale this Friday at 2 p.m.
This Friday at 2 p.m. Not next Friday. This Friday. That's my fault. I read it wrong earlier. So this Friday at 2 p.m. the tickets will go on sale. Anybody who buys a ticket before the end of February, that's February the 28th this year, anybody who buys a ticket before the end of the 28th of February will be in with a chance of winning a starter set of their choice. Pending, like, we're not going to give you a Martell starter set, like, because they don't exist. Don't ask the Martells. You'll be a noob if you ask for Martells.
I mean, in the past, when I ran the when I ran the if you can break the builder, you get a starter set of your choice. Like 100% of people were like, "I want a Greyjoy starter set." I was like, "They don't exist."
Yeah, exactly.
What, do you think I'm magic? This was 2019 or something, and Greyjoys weren't even out.
Like, I mean, can we just confirm? Can we just confirm something? Are you not magic?
Unfortunately, my powers are limited, and even if I was Simon's favorite person, I don't think I could have magicked you up a Greyjoy starter set. And I'm not always their favorite person. I think.
I don't think so. It might be sometimes. I think you've broken the illusion as well. I think anyone who hasn't met you actually genuinely thought you were magic. Sometimes I think you're still magic, and I've met you. Then I remember, no, you're just a dick. No.
Fine.
So yes, Friday event tickets. This Friday, event tickets will be on sale for both the main event and the Friday ELO event as well. So if you're coming to the Invitational or looking to get a ticket to the Invitational, or you want to attend the ELO event that's running alongside it, you can get your tickets on Friday as well. Remember, buying a ticket to the ELO event is exactly the same thing as buying a ticket to the Invitational. So if you want to come to the ELO event, but then you get offered a spot at the Invitational, you will obviously have the trade-off of choosing which one you want to attend. I'd like to think you pick the Invitational if you're going to be there anyway. But it's the same ticket that covers both. So you don't have to think about buying an extra ticket. You don't have to think, oh God, I'm going to have to last minute buy a ticket to the Invitational. If you're going to come for the Friday, are you interested in coming for the Friday, you'll still have the ELO event if you don't make the Invitational as well.
Yeah.
So
we really want to make the GT as much as possible towards 2.5 to 3 games of gaming. Make it really like a convention level event worth people traveling internationally for, without penalizing those who can only make it for the weekend, right? Like if you cannot get away from your job on the Friday and you can only be there for the Saturday, Sunday, there is a 2-day main event. What happens on the Friday will have no impact upon that event. There is no requirement to be there on Friday, but we would like as many as people as possible to come to the Friday events and really enjoy all 3 days of gaming. And so, that it is really driven towards that. And there is a ticket price, which I'm pretty sure will come out to be £10 for the extra Friday event. But that really genuinely is because the LGT as a whole, the 40K kind of main event that runs it, requires us to sell a ticket. We can't, we're not allowed to not tell them how many people are coming. We're not allowed to just give away entry. So £10 is basically as low as we're allowed to sell an extra day of gaming. We'd love it for you to just come for 3 days if you can make it.
So yeah, those tickets sale goes up on Friday. We will, of course, be putting posts out about it from the Grand Tournament UK organisers Facebook group on all the Discords, of course, as well. And we'll obviously promoting it through stats on Facebook as well to make sure everybody knows that the tickets are on sale. So all of that will go up on Friday this week.
COVID, fingers crossed. I really genuinely think that we might make it to over 100 people.
Yeah, no,
I'm really hoping that we get a practic as close as possible to a full 128 bracket.
Yeah. I think it's not unreasonable that we could get there. I really do think that there's enough players with enough interest, and if we can bring the community together like that in the UK, as well as obviously international members as well, that would be amazing. It really will. On that note, we also have the ELO Friday event. We've got some other events coming up. So, LVO is this weekend. The lists have not been locked yet by Carl. They're waiting on a few more stragglers to get their lists in, and it's looking like, I mean, they've got 22 people on stats at the moment, but there are more due to sign up, as they're saying. I think it's sounding like he's got about 30 people from what last I'd heard. So yes, fantastic. That'll be running this weekend. Feel free to watch it live, unravel on the stats site, following the rounds as they come in. I don't know if any streaming's gone ahead, but yeah, you can follow the rest live. That's fine. There's also an event at Chelmsford Bunker happening this weekend, and I've been chatting with Dan, who's the organizer of the Chelmsford Bunker event, and it actually looks really, really clean and very interesting faction mix-up. So it's only a small tournament, 16 players, but get yourself down there if you can to that event in Chelmsford if you're in the UK. There's another event this weekend, and that's in Pensacola, Florida. Another 16-player event, Level Up Gaming Tourney. Obviously, kudos to them. Hope that goes well. There's an event in Lublin, Poland. Where could we be if there weren't some Polish tournaments? You know, so I was telling my partner this. Literally, the Polish community has an event, I'm fairly certain, at least 2 events every month, a minimum. If not, an event every week, minimum, if not 2. If you're in Poland, you can probably go to an event every single week of the year, and you will have failed to go to all of the events on offer. Like, yeah, it's nuts. So another one as well on Sunday as well in Wrocław, Poland. So yes, Captain Con, I believe, is still going ahead. The 30-point tournament that is happening, not this weekend coming, but the weekend after. So watch out for that. There's another event in Warsaw, Poland. Told you, there's ones all the time. There is an event in France that weekend as well in Dijon. Captain Con obviously running that weekend as well. I don't know if Captain Con's still going ahead as all is planned. I think they've had some issues. Obviously, you'll need to get in contact with the organisers and so on and so forth to find out exactly what's going on. Massive tournament, 16-player tournament, sorry, Battle of Dawn in Russia, another Russian event, great to see. And then after that, we've got some other stuff as well. But the one I wanted to point out was, of course, the Triumvirate tournament, which I believe, if I'm right in saying this, is this Lockerbie's event? Yes, it is Lockerbie's event. So this is the Triumvirate tournament, TTT, which is really annoying because it's going to be on TTS. It's a team tournament with 3 players in, as Carlo mentioned earlier, I believe. And you will play a standard team event, 3-player event. There are some list building formalities regarding which you can take. Feel free to read through all of them here. A short, quick, easy summary is each team can only have neutral NCUs appearing once outside of neutral NCU lists. So Tycho can't be run by everyone in the event unless one of you's running neutrals, and then you can have one person running neutral Tycho and one person running Tycho in, say, Night's Watch. 3 players, 1 faction each, as per usual, as is common in team events.
Carl says that I have a picture, but if Carl wants the world to see it, he should send it to Mickey.
Yes. Do you not have it? Can you
That's
not
how
just send it to me? God, you are lazy sometimes, I tell you. No. Yeah, if you want to send it to me, you can do, and I'll throw it up at the end of the episode, Carl. But yeah, obviously, if you are interested in that, feel free to enter. We'll see how it goes. We will see how it goes and see how many people enter. Yeah, I don't know, Carlo. Are you still interested in this?
Loki runs a good event, so he'll get people in line, get the ducks in line. Team tournament's not easy to run, so I think that three. I think he's already thought through that 3 is a good manageable number. I don't think it will last too long. I think he's looking for a relatively short number of rounds. And he's also considered, having a 4th reserve player in case people can't play all their results. I know in the past people have felt on TTS that with a long period of time they felt pressured into weeks where they really could play. But they're to play the game, and they're really.
Yeah, no, that's true. Having spare players and having the ability to play extra games or spare games on hand is very handy indeed for teams, especially when tight schedules can happen. And we're not certain countries now. We're not in full lockdown mode, meaning we don't have the same kind of freedoms that we used to have in full lockdown. All right then. There is one more event that I wanted to give a shout out to before we end today's episode. And the last event is the Duke's Gaming Song of Ice and Fire tournament, Valentine's Massacre, on the 12th of February, run by Scabman, in Pontypool, Duke's Gaming. It's only a small event at 8 players, but he's really keen to try and get some more players there, get to grow his community in that kind of area of the UK. So anyone interested in gaming in that area or bit of a further distance, go out there, go and smash it, turn up at his event and enjoy yourselves. And yeah, hopefully everything else will go well. There's loads of other events going on further ahead, but we'll obviously give them their time in the day, time in the sun over the next couple of weeks in the build up to those. Yeah, I think that takes us to the end of today's episode, Carlo.
I've just had it's very, very early days. I hope I'm not stealing his thunder. It's speaking to me now on Discord. So Ariakas, Great Canadian Open, happening in August. So if you can make it to Canada in August, put it in your calendars.
Yeah. So the Great Canadian Open, run by a physical event, I'm guessing, run by Ariakas in the US. That will be fantastic. It was US, Canada, sorry, North America. Jesus, my brain just went off on there.
We were about to have NA nationals again.
I know, right?
That wasn't up to be attended by Canadian players.
It's an absolute classic, that, isn't it? So on the way out, before we say goodbye and obviously good luck to everyone playing games, this is the table from LVO of all the cool stuff. What are those Bowen Marsh cards?
It's a great haul.
Yeah, it is a great haul.
Yeah, I believe these are oversized Bowen Marsh NCUs that Simon have given to the top 4 finishers. a little bit odd, but like
There's a pack,
interesting to
right?
have like a really unique piece.
Is it a pack of cards that are the NCUs? It's not just Bow and Marsh, maybe?
Maybe, yeah, that makes sense. When I first saw it, I thought that the card was that thick.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really great haul, and I know that the LVO tournament organizers have had some issues, but they've done a really, really brilliant job. A lot of this has actually come out of the original tournament organizers' personal pocket. The Simon stuff in the background has been provided by Simon. They've done real solid job. That's a really good amount of prize support that you would expect for an event of like 20 or 30 players. But all the extras that you see in front, all the other A Song of Ice and Fire paraphernalia, that's all done by the original TOs. So they've done a great job. And, great shout out to Carl Kirsten, who's managed to get this stuff over in time, ready for TO at a very short notice. I mean, speaking of extra paraphernalia, I'm super, super happy with this A Song of Ice and Fire goblet that I got. That's really nice.
Yeah, we also got. You can just see the Targaryen pennant above your head as well, right? Dan had one.
His Targaryen.
Yeah, and there's the Lannister one there. These are really nice, by the way. Stuff like this is really nice. My partner called it a dust collector when I got it home, and I was kind of like, I guess it is, but it's a nice dust collector, so it's worth it. Anyway, yes, we will leave it there for this week, guys, on LVO. We'll be back next week with some news that probably breaks tomorrow morning, with an update, or not with an update, with an event, or maybe not another event. We'll see. I think the only other thing we've got to say, or leave it with, is we might be running an event in Durham, right, in a couple of months' time. Potentially, we're looking.
Are you running it?
Well, I say we, as in like potentially it will be me, potentially it will be you. We'll see. We'll see who fancies playing on the day, I think. But
yeah, I have started thinking about the reality of us having an event. So if you can get to the northeast of England, then put a date which doesn't exist in your calendars, ready to come play.
Yeah, that's a whiles away, and to say nothing's been sorted at all. But seems like me and Carlo both came to the same conclusion separately over the weekend, and then we talked about it in the car on the way back, about running an event. So, I hope everyone has a fantastic week. I hope everyone enjoys themselves. If you're going to LVO, enjoy LVO. Best of luck, Carl, and the event there. And for everybody else,
yeah, good luck to everybody going to LVO. Stay safe. Hope the event's really, really brilliant. Hope it's really, I hope the whole convention is good. Because I'm really genuinely quite good that I didn't make it out. I really, really hope that I'll be able to next year. But I hope that it's a good kicking off for A Song of Ice and Fire at the convention, and they come back bigger and better next year. Because I'm sure there's a lot of internationals who are sad that they have had to pull out, myself being one of a whole range of, quite prominent names in the community who hope to be there. But they are going to make it. I'm sure it'll be a brilliant tournament.
Yeah. So thank you very much for all tuning in, guys. We will be back next week with more information, probably on some tournaments and all the various things that have gone on. And aside from that, enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you next week. Aim! Release! Anyone see my mammoth?